presents a product of boredom, a product of nothingness.
Anything you want me to be.
Long time no see. Welcome to Anything You Want Me to Be Radio, a product of the Unknown Space Arts Ensemble, brought to you by KWDC 93.5 Delta College Radio. I am Thomas Aganda, and hello. It's been a minute since the last episode. We have a very special interview ahead, so I won't take up much time, but I think it's important to give some transparency to frequent listeners, so let me just tell you, the Unknown Space Ensemble have been booked. Personal lives aside, I can confirm we have been busy with a collection of new projects that's on the horizon, and I'm very excited to bring to light soon. Good enough? Anyways, today we have a very special interview with a duo of fellow aspiring filmmakers, Josh Tovar and Eric Gomez. We had the privilege to be interviewed by them on their podcast, the Y2K Podcast, which you can find on YouTube. Link will be in the bio to this. And today we have the very special privilege to interview them. The interview ahead is conducted by Quantum Dreams, Alexzandre Salon of the Unknown Space Ensemble. Without further ado.
Welcome back to Anything You Want Me to Be Radio. Unfortunately, Tom was in class today and couldn't make it, but he would have loved to have been able to sit in this interview and ask questions as well. For this very special episode. So today, we have Eric Gomez and Josh Tovar, who are two aspiring filmmakers who have created their own podcast and have also recently, released a short film. If you guys would like to go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hey, so my name is Josh Tovar. I'm a filmmaker. I just dropped a film, Acting Through Concrete, and I work a lot with my friend Eric Gomez. We have a podcast together. We make films together, and that's just sort of the vibe, you know?
My name is Eric Gomez. I am a filmmaker with Josh as well. I am also an actor, starting to get into it a little bit, and I was the cinematographer for for Acting Through Concrete.
Yeah, so as you just mentioned, Josh and Eric just recently released a short film called Acting Through Concrete, and I had a few questions about that. So my first question is going to be to Josh. I know you wrote and directed this, so of course there's like a lot of personal emotion that was put into this, but as much as you're comfortable and willing to share, like how much of this was a direct reflection of you? Because I know you said when you were writing this, there was a lot of like anxious feelings that you were going through, and the story is a very like personal story.
It is very personal, but it's more the voiceovers are personal. A lot of people think like I remember I was talking to my cousin earlier, and then I remember Eric and my cousin being like, well, you got your girlfriend pregnant, didn't you? And it's like, the situations are fake, but the emotions are very real. And I honestly was feeling, because I wrote it back in January, February of this year, and I was feeling like a lot of like anxious feelings, like a lot of depression, honestly. And writing this really helped. But so to answer the question, most of the feelings are real, but the situations are fake.
Okay, because yeah, I know I was reading on your Instagram story that like the feeling of being a dad, even though you're not a dad. And so I was just curious about like how much of it was like fiction and how much it was like true feeling. Who did the cinematography on this?
Eric was the camera guy, and then I kind of just was like, I'm a big fan of Wes Anderson, and he has like a lot of like symmetrical shots, so I just kept telling Eric to make it like as even as possible. And from the beginning, I knew that I wanted it to be a square aspect ratio because of like it's just all in one location, and the colors just kind of like happened just in post. But Eric gets a lot of credit for the camera work. He was holding the camera for most of the movie. Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that a little bit, Eric?
Yeah, I'll talk. Yeah, so for the cinematography, Josh wanted for the aspect ratio. He's going to do all that, and he wanted him in the center a little bit. Well, no, for most of the movie. And it was kind of difficult for me because like there would be things popping up on the sides, and Josh would just be like, "Oh, just focus on the center, just focus on me," and all that. So it took a while for me to do that, and it just kind of stuck to me when I was focusing on him more. So yeah, that was just a little one challenge of doing the cinematography for the film.
And it's funny that you guys mentioned the aspect ratio and the coloring, because that's one thing that Tom and I both really admired about the short film was all that, because like I was saying, it's a very personal story, and because of like it's such a tight shot and shot or in that aspect ratio, I feel like it makes it feel, I don't know, so much more close to the character and to what you're saying.
Yeah, I really wanted it to feel like you're like there with him. I like recorded like all the voiceover like as close to the camera, as close to the mic as I can get it, and I recorded it like in the closet. But like I really wanted it to just feel like very like close, like personal, like you're there with him. So I'm glad you guys got that kind of like feel that I was trying to get. That's awesome.
And I don't know if you're supposed to ask about this, but like the coloring wise, like the color grading and stuff. I don't know if that takes away from like, I don't know, I guess the emotion you're trying to convey. But am I allowed to ask about the color grading? Because like I said, we both really like that. And why is that kind of like I guess it's more, it's like purple, but it's kind of like you put red and blue to make it purple.
Yeah. For the mid section of the movie towards the end, there's like a lot of like kind of like purple, and the beginning is sort of like teal. So with the blue, I wanted it to be kind of like, just kind of have like a feeling of kind of like just like calm, but sort of like anxious. And that's sort of like when I see like those like kind of like darker to like light blues, I sort of get kind of like, it's a weird mixed feeling of just like calmness, but also like anxiousness. But that's sort of how I feel. Cause I know Eric sort of like sees it kind of like more as like calm, but as towards for the end of the movie, the purple was just kind of like, I like it. I feel like 50% of it is I just liked it, and the other 50% was like I did feel like it sort of like felt right for the movie, honestly.
So there's a couple projects that Tom and I were talking about creating, and one of them was going to be written by me, and also, you know, I was going to star in it, like I was going to be the only one in it. Very similar to like what you did. So do you feel like casting yourself as the main actor helped elevate like the personal level of the short film? And do you think anyone else could have been the main actor since you wrote it?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because originally it was about dancing, and I wanted to cast like a girl dancer. It was called Dancing Through Concrete, but I couldn't find a dancer, and then I couldn't find one that was like, could give it the way I wanted it to, but I could probably see Eric doing it because Eric knows me so well, but it is very like much like a personal story. And I wrote this just like in 2 weeks, and it was sort of like, I was trying to make like a love story for like an entire year, and it was like this big scale love story, and it just completely fell apart. So this was just me going in the opposite direction of like just like, let me just make something as contained as possible with just me.
You guys have also posted on your story a very interesting question, and I kind of want to hear a little bit more about that, like actually be able to ask you about it. It kind of expands on the kind of like self-casting. Not really, but let me just ask the question, you'll understand. Sorry. I believe Eric had asked Josh, do you think writers should be directors, or should that be a different person?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I'm gonna let Eric answer that first.
For me, I think it just kind of depends on if the writer wants to direct or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I know for me as a writer, I kind of see like the visionary when writing, and also for directing as well. And it kind of depends on the writer if he's willing to give his own project to someone else that maybe might have a different view of this movie, or they might have a similar view of it. And that's kind of my take of that question.
Well, I have a question for both of you guys. So, like, if you're a writer and you write something and you put your heart and soul into it, and you decide not to direct it, are you cool? Are you okay with the possibility that director might turn it into something you hate?
No.
Well, because that's sort of my struggle, where it's like I want to be a writer because it just seems so comfy just to write something and be done with it. But like, I know that like, just like reading a lot of like Hollywood stories, that isn't how the process goes. And usually like the writer's vision gets like trampled on. Sometimes something better comes from it, but a lot of times like something worse happens. But you go, Alex.
I feel like it kind of just depends. Like you're saying that being okay with what you wrote, if it doesn't turn into that, I don't think I'd be happy with that, because I don't know, when you have something in mind and it doesn't go the way you want, like obviously like no one likes that. It's like the same reason when you're working on like group projects or whatever, and you're assigned to this one part and everyone else you have to trust everyone else to do everything a certain way. You still have that like level of resentment because like you're not in control of it.
Do you think you have in control? You're in control of many things? Because my biggest takeaway from directing this short was that my vision of this short is something that is possible down the line, and that it's not going to be my perfect vision, but it's okay for now. You know what I mean? Based on my level and what I'm capable of right now. What do you think of that?
So, do you mean this is like a stepping stone to something bigger?
Yes, but it's also like, I'm starting to think that maybe this like, because the way I saw the film was just different, but then I'm like, what is that different though? Like, what is my vision? Like, is my vision even like real? I know that sounds kind of weird, but like, is it even like real though? Or am I just like criticizing myself? Is this like an excuse? Because I feel like for me, like I've procrastinated a lot with my projects, and it's just because I'm like, oh, it's not good enough. But then it's like, what am I trying to get at even? You know what I mean? I feel like there's no end goal. Do you guys feel like that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Josh, because there have been times where Josh would just kind of like put off projects a little bit, and then I would just have to be like, it's just one little project. It's not going to harm you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think something Tom and I have talked about is like when we first started Unknown Space Radio, I could have sworn we had this conversation, but I don't remember if that was just me or not. But being okay with like knowing that like no one is going to listen to our stuff, and that our thoughts and ideas are just out there, like coming to an understanding that that's a very real possibility. And I don't know, I'm okay with it. I don't know if this answers your question. Is that what
gives you comfort, knowing that like people might not watch it?
It's not. I think it's not the fact that people might not watch it. It's the fact that people might watch it. But it's just getting over that like self-criticism and why does this matter? Is knowing or being okay with the idea of like no one watching or no one listening. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but I have another question because I watched the show. I love this show. So one of the things you said was, and I thought was interesting, was I think you said something along the lines, I'm just paraphrasing, but you said something like, if you just help one person, that will like really like make it for you, right? I found that really interesting. Like, so like, is that sort of how you see it? You just want to help, as long as it doesn't matter what kind of criticism you're going through internally, as long as you're helping that one person, like you're okay with it, like whatever the product is, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we can reach out to one person or a few people or a bunch of people, that idea of maybe we helped like that one person get through their day, or maybe we helped one person not feel so alone.
We'll be back with more Anything You Want Me to Be Radio, but first we're going to take a quick PSA break.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes? Their age? The way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for
summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a single father of 2 who works 3
part-time jobs and still can't put enough food on the table?
Or maybe a mother who cleans offices at night,
hoping to find meeting leftovers to take home to her hungry family.
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. You're listening to Anything You Want Me to Be Radio here on KWDC 93.5 Stockton.
So going back to the short film, I know we went off on a little tangent there, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was most of me.
No, that's fine. I love when we do interviews and they do stuff like that, and we break off and talk about other things, because it feels more human and a little less robotic. So that's totally okay. I just didn't know how to like transition back to like my script, you know?
No, I totally understand. I like when I'm doing the podcast, I always find it like awkward to transition. So I totally understand. Yeah.
So my next question is going to be for Eric. And so for some of you who are listening, you may not know that Eric has been doing some things in the acting game and has done some auditions and has even landed some commercials. In the short film, you don't actually make an appearance rather than a voiceover. So my question is, do you have a preference over acting on camera versus voice acting?
No, not really. I mean, I would rather prefer to be on camera, but for this, Josh just wanted an inner monologue for my character, Andreas. And I didn't. Well, when I was doing the line, Josh was around and he was telling me how he wanted it to go. And how do I say this?
Just very robotic. I wanted it to be just very just basic, but fast. Because I knew in editing I wanted the scene to kind of go by like really, really fast. But I think Eric really nailed it. I like what he did with the character, and then he even improvised a few lines as well, towards the end, which I thought was interesting. But I like how Eric just kind of he would just he brings a lot to his characters, and he's doing a lot more. He's doing a scary movie or something.
Okay. Are you able to talk about that at all?
Yeah, actually, I was an extra for a short film called Ellis, and it was at Marysville, which was quite a drive, and also in Rockland as well. I was just an extra for a short film. I was a student goer and a party goer as well.
Okay.
And the film was basically about this girl called Ellis, who's in high school right now. She's a senior, and she's kind of descending into madness. Basically, she's starting to lose her mind because she's like this punk kid. She's like a rock star kind of girl.
My next project's gonna star just Eric. I think Eric is I feel like he can lead something. So I'm writing something for Eric. That's on my next project, my next short I'm working on.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that at all, or are you saving that up?
It's similar to this film, where it's similar to this film, but I explore the sort of the themes and emotions a lot more, and it's more of a love story. That's all I gotta say about it right now.
Yeah, so I actually almost got into a lead for a feature actually.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Josh, you remember this, right? With the you know who?
Yeah, but then I guess a lot of the things for actors, I go to auditions with Eric, and it's most of these things, it's kind of a weird vibe, or I don't know. I'm not gonna. That's all I got. Weird location. That's all I gotta say about it. But yeah.
Interesting. So something kind of sketch.
I'm just gonna say it. So this director told him to meet at a kids park, and then all the grass was dead at the park, and then the director didn't show up, and then he kept leading on Eric for months, and then Eric just didn't get the role. But there's a lot of that with actors, and it's very I feel for him because it's just frustrating. But I know that he's not gonna give up, and I know he's talented. So Shout out to Eric. That's all I gotta say.
Eric, where do your aspirations as an actor come from?
Growing up, I watched movies a lot. Didn't really do much, and as an actor, I kind of watch like little clips of like talented actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, Jake Gyllenhaal. I watch those guys as well. And also I'm taking acting classes at a acting school in Studio 24. And probably just being in the character, basically being in the character's shoes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. When Tom and I were on Y2K, I talked about, I think I talked about it, about how Marriage Story, that scene where Adam Driver just really like gives it everything, and like that's my moment that I want to try to like find. Is there a scene or maybe just a role by an actor that is kind of like that moment to you?
I got a lot of scenes right now I'm thinking of. Trying to give you a good one. Oh, it was there's this one scene from a movie that Jake Gyllenhaal did. It was from Stronger, where it's based on a true story where he loses his legs, and there's this one scene where he's talking to his girlfriend because his girlfriend is pregnant. He's showing him, but he's having like doubts that he can't be a father, and they're having this huge argument, and he's like getting like loud word to like the point where he's like almost in a rage. And I really like that kind of acting. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think Jake Gyllenhaal is a phenomenal actor, and he gets too much hate.
Yeah, especially now with the Taylor Swift thing. But yeah.
I want to talk about the podcast now, since I mentioned the podcast. So, in case you don't know, Eric and Josh do have a podcast that they started last year.
Yeah, July. We started beginning of July. What were you going to say?
Yeah, so they started a podcast in July called Y2K Podcast. Go ahead and give us like a summary of what the podcast is to you guys.
Okay, so Y2K Podcast is sort of like it's sort of like a chill podcast. I'd say like 50% of it is entertainment, and then the other 50% is sort of like philosophy about art, education. Yeah, we're very curious people, and I'm very interested in just like sort of like the stuff we're talking about right now. If you like this, I feel like it's sort of like similar, but you guys are like put like a lot more like production into it. Ours is kind of like we just kind of pull a camera out and we just film ourselves. Ghetto, yeah. But yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. 50% entertainment, 50% kind of philosophy.
Yeah. You guys do have a very like personal podcast, and you guys talk a lot about like personal stuff as well as just like, you know, random things. And I love your guys' dynamic because I feel like Josh, you're kind of like the crazy one of the podcast, and Eric is the more of the down to earth kind of guy. That kind of like, I think that's what makes your guys' podcast is your dynamic. And even when you do interviews and stuff, it shows.
Yeah. What do you think of the dynamic though? Because I see a lot of people say that, where they're like, oh, they like that I'm the crazy one and he's the more chill one. Like, but what's your like thoughts on it from watching it, the podcast? I'm interested.
I like it because honestly, it gives me like Eric Andre vibes, where you've got like Eric Andre, who's an absolute like nutcase, and you have Hannibal Buress, who's like just kind of there. I'm not saying that Eric is just kind of there, because Eric, you asked really good questions while on the podcast, and but it's funny because like you guys always seem to be like arguing, but like never actually arguing, and
but we bigger like an old married couple. That's what I always say.
Yeah, and I love that, and I don't know, something about the like your two personalities just work really well. So I've got a couple more questions before we wrap up this interview. So what is your goal for the podcast? Would you like to see it as like some sort of time capsule, or is it more for networking?
Honestly, at this point, it's 50-50. It's like 50% of it is networking. We just interviewed a director. It's coming out tomorrow. I don't know when this is coming out, but we've been interviewing a lot of directors, and we'd like to know as many filmmakers as possible and get their work out as well. Because I do love a lot of the work of the people we've been interviewing. And the other half is just like, it is time capsuling. Like, I looked back at the earlier episodes like the other day, and I was like, damn, I just looks like such a baby, and I was kind of like nervous, but like I didn't show anyone. I just kind of like kept talking. But I like looking back on it. I like interviewing people. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, it's 50-50 as well for me. For film directors and interviewing those other people as well.
Apart from those two projects, is there like, what about the future of you two as a duo? Like, do you have like any bigger plans, or you kind of just sticking with the podcast and your projects for right now?
I think we want to do the podcast as much as possible, but I feel like at the end of the day, me and Eric really like care about each other, but we know that we might split apart eventually. Is that we're both on the same page with that? And it's just because I want to be a director, but I'm also interested in like finances and like Bitcoin. And then Eric's just straight up interested in like acting. And I respect that. And I want to cast Eric in as many projects as possible. I'd love to make like professional movies with Eric, but I know that he's got to do his own thing and he's got to make himself happy. And I'm trying to make myself happy. And I just hope that we're both happy. I hope we're all happy.
Okay. With that being said, where can we find you guys? Like your short films, your podcasts, and anything else you would like to shout out?
I'm Posh Tovar on everything. Posh, and then TOVAR on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Yeah, that's just me though. And then Y2K podcast.
Yeah, Y2K podcast. For me, my Instagram, E the greatest. So E_the_greatest. And yeah, that's for my Instagram, YouTube, Eric Gomez. But for looking me up on YouTube, just look up Full Moon and then type in Eric Gomez, and you'll find all my work there.
Anything You Want Me to Be Radio, Volume 2, has been a production of KWDC 93.5 LPFM, Delta College Radio. This program is made possible by listeners like you. Programming is produced by the students, staff, and faculty of San Joaquin Delta College's Radio Television Department. It is supported by the Delta College Department of Arts, Humanities, and Multimedia, the Career Technical Education and Workforce Department Office, and the State of California. Thank you for listening.
And then also, I know you guys talked about how, like, Josh, you talked about how you're writing a new project that stars Eric. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I know, Eric, you're working on something as well. Did you want to talk about that at all? The project that you're working on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I almost thought, I got confused for a second. I was like, what am I working on? So, yes, I'm actually working on a project right now called Full Moon Part 2, which is a sequel to my very first short film that I did a while back in 2016. And we recently just wrapped that up. I think it was a month ago on Filmmakers.
Yeah, it was till the end of October, I think, at the beginning of November, something like that. But yeah.
And right now I'm in the editing process of that, and I'm hoping to release it soon. I'm kind of almost there a little bit with the editing process, but just for a little plot summary. So basically my character in the first film, Ricardo, he's coming back to get help from his old friend, which is Jake, which was played by Josh in the original one. And he's facing through some of these challenges. You know, he's been living with, he's a werewolf, and he's been living with this curse for about a few years. He's kind of done with it, over it, and he's just facing these challenges. And Jake is probably the only last hope, basically.
It's his last hope, but it's also a lot about I'd say it's about what he's going through, right? It's a lot of how do I describe it? It's sort of like anxiety, right? I'd say anxiety, sort of his fears. Second chance, yeah. Sorry, we haven't talked about it in public that much, but we talk about it a lot off camera, but it is mostly about second chances. That's what I was trying to say in the beginning. But yeah, we really believe in second chances, and this movie's about second chances.
Tom messaged me and said he wants me to ask this question. Going back to Dancing Through Concrete, can you expand on it a little more and tell us what it could have been?
What it could have been. So it is still pretty close to what I originally had in mind, because I sort of designed it in a way, because I was so frustrated from that original project that I was talking about earlier that I had to keep cutting out scenes because actors would flake on me or I couldn't get this location. So I was so frustrated. I was like, let me just design a movie no excuses, no, it's totally in my control. And I totally suggest that for any filmmakers watching this. Make something that is in your control. So I was like, I have a room, I think I can get a dancer, so let me just write about a dancer. And I was going through a lot of anxiety. I was like, let me just write about this anxiety I'm feeling. So the original version was supposed to be about a dancer. She has an audition, but now it's about an actor. He's got an audition. So the only difference is that it was going to be about dancing. And I still am interested in making that version, maybe somewhere down the line when I have more experience as a filmmaker and I have more access to actors. I'd love to see that version of a dancer, because I like watching dancing. I know that sounds weird, but sometimes I watch like those like ballet things. But that's just sort of the original version of Dancing Through Concrete. And I like the title too. Dancing Through Concrete just sounds better to me, but I still like Acting Through Concrete. Yeah. My biggest takeaway or biggest advice would be, if you're a filmmaker, do something that's in your control. I know a lot of filmmakers, I was helping Eric write something like a few months ago, and he kept having these like big ideas, and I was like, just think small, like try to control it. Like, because within that control, you have so much power. You have more power than you probably would have if you had $1 million. You know what I mean? If someone gave you $1 million, you'd have to do what that person wants. You have to make that person happy. But if you're doing it with your money, with your ideas, no one can tell you what to do. It's totally in your control. And that's what I love about filmmaking.
Do you guys have anything planned for like maybe doing like a holiday special or end of the year special?
Yeah, I want to do like a recap, or like when shows do this thing where it's like a clip show of all their shows, where I want to like me and Eric to pick like the best moments of the year, and then we just go through it. Because like there's a moment earlier in the podcast where I asked like a rock star to blow smoke in my mouth, and I think that was very entertaining. I always go back to that scene. I love it so much.
What is your guys' like favorite like episode in general, whether it's a guest episode or a solo episode?
For me, I love, the top ones have to be the Justin one, which for Justin Mickle, he was like one of our first guests. He's one of my favorites. I enjoy your guys' episode as well. And I enjoy, Eric's uncle, but that's just me. Eric, I'm curious what Eric thinks, because I haven't asked him in a while.
Yeah. My favorite episodes from us probably be, the Orange Peel episode, the Wasim episode, and probably my uncle as well. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy having my uncle around.
How comfortable are you guys in interviews and stuff when you do the episodes where it's like with other people?
Depends. For your guys' episode, what made it, I was a little nervous, but what made me more comfortable was the lighting, and then just like meeting you guys. Like I don't know, just instantly, it was just very chill. It's just, I feel like a lot of it is just about like vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. It just has to deal with the vibes, and I'm a lot more chill now than I was before.
Eric is a lot more opened up. In those first episodes, even in the solo episodes, Eric did not talk that loud or talk that much, but he's like really opened up. We did like a guest episode a few days ago, and he was just asking questions like crazy. He had like a list of questions, and I was like, damn, Eric, he's just like, I love seeing him, that kind of like evolution where he's just kind of like becoming more comfortable in his own skin. And I just love when anybody does that as a person.
I was gonna ask you about that, because I know when we went, and also from watching like the podcasts, Josh, you're kind of like me. You have like a list. Like I have a list on my computer, and I have a list in front of me of like questions and talking points and stuff. I noticed you are a little more organized, because you have to, like, for me, I would say it's organized because like I have to have everything so that way I don't lose my train of thought. Compared to like Eric, Eric, do you like kind of just come up with questions on the spot, or do you have stuff in mind already and like kind of figure out when to put it in?
Originally, I just came out with stuff on the spot, but then I started to realize I should make a list because sometimes I wouldn't really say that much at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did you guys feel coming into the podcast? I'm interested in your guys' perspective.
I remember Tom telling me like, "Hey, we got invited to do this podcast," and I was just like so hyped because I was like, "Yeah, we're being recognized. We made it!" And it was really a cool experience. And then going into it, I was actually really nervous because I don't do well with like new people whatsoever. Kind of like what we talked about on the podcast. Like right now, I'm like kind of anxious just because like I have a hard time talking to new people. Not that you guys are like new people, but you're still new people to me. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed your guys' podcast, and walk me through I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but since we both do interviews, walk me through your like research and how you write for interviews.
Okay, so what I do is I stalk everybody on like social media, especially since I started this podcast. I will go through like everyone's likes and I'll be like, okay, what's this person doing? What's this person doing? And then I'll be like, okay, like for you guys, I shout out to Luis Lua. I was friends with Luis Lua. I used to work with him. I used to work at a movie theater, and I saw that you guys were making movies. I like binge watched all your movies, and I was like, I have to have them on the podcast. I love their guys. I love this stuff. It's kind of like a vibe. I loved it. So then, I asked Tom, and I had a few conversations with Tom before. So I asked him, and then I went through it with the podcast, and I just opened up like a notes app, and I just write down all the questions I'm thinking. And then I went through like both of your guys' like social media, and I just kind of like I just follow all the breadcrumbs. Like if you guys said something, I'd make sure to like look that up and kind of like go from there and see like try to figure out like what you guys like really. And then because it's weird because like you want it to be natural, so you don't. I've written like less and less questions because what happens is I write so many questions and in the moment I get like nervous and it all sort of like blends together and it just looks like kind of weird. So now it's like I ask like probably like 10 or 15 questions I write down really, but they're questions that I really want to ask, and I know that I hope that the guest really is interested because I see them talking about it a lot in their personal lives or on their social media. But that's just how I go about it. How about you, Eric? How do you go about it? How did you go about this recent one?
For the recent one?
Yeah.
Well, for recently, Josh has been the one finding the guests because our first guest, Justin Mickle, he was an old friend and he saw our first episode. And I was like, did you want to come on as a guest? So originally, I was the one trying to find guests to be on the show. And then Josh kind of took on the reins and he would send me like all the info on who these people were. I would do research a little bit. And then it just kind of went from there, mostly.
Yeah, you mentioned that you write down a bunch of questions and like you end up like in the moment start talking more about what they're talking about. That's something I try to like to do, but I don't know. Sometimes my brain turns off and I forget what I'm going to ask. So I definitely do appreciate like that kind of level of or that style of interviewing. And I also feel like some of the best interviews that like I've watched are when the interviewer is a fan of the interviewee. And so when I was doing the questions for this one, I tried to like binge watch all of your guys' podcasts so that way I could come up with talking points. But unfortunately, we don't have enough time to like, because there's like a bunch of stuff in here that you guys talked about that I would love to expand upon, like crackhead stories at work or like simulation theory, because we talked in one of your episodes you guys talked about like the like theories and stuff. But yeah, unfortunately we don't have enough time. Maybe for another episode. But
I'd love that. I'd love to have you guys back on. You guys were awesome guests.
Yeah, thank you. One thing Tom and I have talked about when creating all the stuff that we do, we've wanted to get like another person to help us out, but Tom and I kind of like it's not really like power, but I guess like how much control that we have being just the two of us. And when we do reach out to other people for help, like they're usually willing to like, it doesn't sound really bad, but kind of just do what we say. Moving forward, do you like that like tight group of control of just you and Eric, or do you want to like expand into something a little bit bigger where you have more people?
I want people that I'm comfortable with and I know will be honest with me and that I have like a vibe with. Because Eric, I'm making him the star of my next project because I've known him for so long and I know what he's capable of, and I know that if I write something in a certain way, it to kind of like hit his personality a little bit, I can write in his voice and it will be so much better of a product. So if I can get a team of those people, I feel like I can only get so many of those people. So probably like a smaller team. But there is a project. I'm obsessed with Kurt Cobain and his life story. I would love to make like a high scale fucking big budget Kurt Cobain project. But that's the only real high budget big production that would take like hundreds of thousands of people that I want. For the most part, I think I'm cool just building a small little team of just people that I really care about and trust. But that's just me.